And again, we talked about this, Ron, before. We talked about, accountability. Doesn't seem like, and this is the thing that makes me mad when you hear Wall Street, because they always preach that accountability. We're going to be open, especially after they had all this scandal on Wall Street and the SEC came in and got involved. And then I say to myself, well, it's interesting, because this government holds individuals more accountable than they hold these big banking firms. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be able to get away with this nonsense. You'd be bankrupt and be out. They changed the banking laws, matter of fact, the bankruptcy laws, so that you can't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And even when they had the mortgage companies that were, selling these mortgages and then selling them to the larger banks, they're analysts. Analysts have to be looking at the big picture. So even if the mortgage company was just trying to get over, somebody on another level has to be looking at the situation, knowing what this is going to do when the economy implodes.
When they first started to allow this bundling of these particular securities, whatever, and they had hearings in Washington and stuff, and they had these lobbyists coming forth telling them not to do it, and they still did it anyway. It's not like see, this is the thing somebody said to me. This is like something that snuck up on everybody. You were warned. People told you that this was going to happen, and you didn't listen.
Anytime you have the implicit backing of the U.S. government, it's implicit that they're going to come in and it's implied that they're going to give you support if you happen to fall. It's no reason why it should have been in 2002, 2001 holding back their financial statements from being transparent with those financial statements. And now it went from implicit, now it's explicit. They put the $300 billion behind these entities. There's no reason why Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac should have had to say, well, you know what, since there's a chance, since I own almost half of the mortgages in this country, 5.4 of the $12 trillion of mortgages in this country we own or have to backing to, there's no reason why we shouldn't say, here's our financial statements, you can look them over to make sure that we're on point. Outside of our own independent auditors, how about they have an independent analyst team to come in over and say, you know what, they would have found, just like, and I'm not trying to promote him here, but Barack Obama had it right about a year and a half ago, trying to say, you know what, this foreclosure thing might be getting a little bit big. We need to go ahead and start looking at these income statements to make sure things are going on. What's going on here? Let's try to put some legislation on the table to get a little bit more transparency. He was one of the ones leading that fight. Well, on the other side, John McCain was saying, no, deregulate. There are strong proponents of lesser government, more deregulation. We're a free market society. Do you want to have cautious socialism versus destructive capitalism? And you're right. At the end of the day, the PBGC, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, it was essentially designed so corporations can get help from John Doe taxpayers when they can't afford to pay pensions. This is another,
And that's a small organization, and a lot of people don't know anything about it.
And we fund it because if John Doe is spending all their money, John Doe CEO is spending all their money irresponsibly, the PBGC says, okay, I understand you can't pay your full pension. We're going to step in and try to help pay a portion of that, funded by the taxpayers. UAW getting sued by Delphi to try to void labor contracts that are signed. This is signed contracts. And I always say this in a lot of the seminars, there's no individual in the world that can take a credit card company to court to say, can I sue you because I don't want to pay you the full amount that I owe you. And if, again, like you said, they passed bankruptcy legislation in April of 2005 to essentially say that now you have to take a class before you file for Chapter 7. Did Richard Ford have to take a class, the CEO of Lehman Brothers, to actually file? What course is there for corporations? They have to have a dual weighting of equal responsibility and transparency on all levels.
But see, people fail to realize it again. And when did all of this stuff started changing? And it was always underneath a Republican administration, and people could say whatever they want to say. It did. The whole philosophy of dealing with the stock market and stuff and this laissez-faire attitude, all this crap like that started with them. And they always kept preaching it. They wanted to, and Phil Graham, I'm going to bring it up again, because you know why? Because we was right. I keep having to say that when the news wouldn't talk about it, Lloyd, we was talking about it. You have somebody that's in office, and again, why is it we're not talking about Charles Keating? Why are we not talking about the bank collapse during the 80s? And John McCain was right involved in it. Yet the press hasn't asked him one question about it. I don't understand that. People forget about the banking crisis of the 80s and stuff. And it was, again, this whole idea, like you talk about, we need to leave the market alone, we don't need to correct it. We bailed out that situation. And we still didn't get our money back. You talk about the government got back like 50% on the dollar. which is ridiculous.
And then even now, I mean, you look at the fact that the government's going to have an 80% stake, in AIG, but, they're getting back to the point that you don't want to get into. We have situations like, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The main reason the government let it privatize is because they don't want to have to deal with that situation. And now they are hopefully going to keep a closer eye on what goes on with that $85 billion loan, because they have to. They have a big stake in it.
And let's talk about this whole idea, because I was listening to, I don't know why I listen to the Republican radio, but we have to. We want to, and we don't want to be always down on the Republicans. There's some things that they talk about that I agree with, but when we're talking about the financial situation and stuff, I think that there's some things that they need to come to terms with. They're talking about this whole idea with Nancy Pelosi is politically motivated. The country's almost, the world economy is almost collapsing, and they want to find out what happened, what's going on. They want to investigate it. Barack Obama made a point also when he was talking about John McCain, talking about they should have a committee on it. And he was like, no, we don't need a committee. We know what's wrong. Okay. I think that, and I've said to myself, is that the way we should approach it with Nancy Pelosi and with the Democrats? Is saying, look, this whole thing, is this an idea like the Republicans are saying is grandstanding, trying to make the Republicans look bad? Should we really be looking into this, or do we really know enough that we should be moving forward with some real policy changes?
Well, I'm going to tell you now, Barack Obama has already had his economic committee on this. If you look at his economic plan on his website, it really clearly defines exactly more regulation, transparency of financial statements, of all those things that he would like to push. And he's had this website and these policies on his website for quite some time, for over 18 months now.
So is Pelosi right in terms of her saying that that we should be investigating this, or the Republicans right saying this is politically motivated grandstanding?
Well, it's definitely not grandstanding, because what's the other option? I mean, what are they putting on the table to solve the problem? Obviously, if something's going wrong with an entire industry that has such ripple effects throughout United States and then the world, you have to do something. And one of the things is to find out what's going wrong, what you've been doing in the past that hasn't been working. And that's why it makes it so laughable when you look at the Republicans saying, oh, don't take the tax breaks away from the big corporations, and then they don't say why.